Is a strong locker room mandatory for a successful team? If you ask a coach, they'll probably say yes. If you ask a player, they'll probably say yes as well. If you ask a player or a coach from any of these next 5 teams, they'll probably flip you off and then try to stab you in the neck with a pair of scissors. Literally. The best teams with the most toxic locker rooms are coming up right after this. From dynasties to near champs, there were plenty of teams that were able to cut out the noise while they were on the field, even while their locker room was engulfed in flaming hot drama. Most of the notorious incidents from these toxic teams came while the cameras were off, but thanks to the snooping of hardworking journos and the pettiness of scorned teammates, all has been uncovered in time. So put on your hazmat suit and marvel at these sports circuses, some of them with 3 rings, some with none at all. But rest assured, there's always a good show. With a room full of personalities like Richard Sherman, Earl Thomas, Golden Tate, Michael Bennett, Marshawn Lynch, and Percy Harvin, it's not surprising that the 2013 Seahawks locker room was boiling over even as they laid waste to the rest of the NFL in pursuit of their first and only Super Bowl ring. During that 13-3 season, there were reports that Percy Harvin punched fellow wide receiver Golden Tate in the week before the Super Bowl, leaving Tate with a shiner even as they defeated the Broncos handily and hoisted the Lombardi. Speaking of Tate, there's also the very alleged business between him and Russell Wilson's first wife that resulted in Tate leaving for Detroit and Wilson leaving for Ciara in 2014.
See y'all in the morning.
A season later, all hell broke loose when the Seahawks were on the goal line against the Patriots, knocking on the door for back-to-back titles, and Russell Wilson threw an interception to flip the script and close the door on multiple championships. Yep, I had to show it. Offensive coordinator Darrell Bevell and head coach Pete Carroll's decision to throw the ball with Marshawn Lynch in the backfield further fractured a locker room already ripping apart at the seams, and the Hawks never made it past the divisional round with the Legion of Boom, and this moment was essentially the final match on the Seahawks' collapsing tire fire. There was a reason that a Hall of Fame wide receiver like Terrell Owens played for 5 different teams over the course of his 15-year career.
It's my quarterback.
Unfortunately, for as good as he was on the field, he wore out his welcome quicker than he could get in and out of cuts. T.O.'s personality erupted like Mount Vesuvius, but never more so than when he was a Philadelphia Eagle from 2004 to 2005. During the first year, the Eagles won 13 games while Owens caught 14 touchdowns, but his relationship with quarterback Donovan McNabb replaced Andy Reid as the elephant in the room. Alright, that was uncalled for, sorry Andy. Despite being a perfect match for each other within the Eagles offense, Owens and McNabb's feud began how it usually does with all receivers, by complaining about being open and not getting the ball. Owens claimed McNabb told him to shut the up in the huddle and thus sparked the downfall. Despite a valiant attempt by Owens to carry the Eagles to their first Super Bowl victory, grabbing 9 passes for 122 yards just weeks after breaking his leg, the Eagles fell short to the Patriots, and soon the McNabb-Owens era unraveled. Owens took shots at McNabb for getting tired in the Super Bowl and said they would have won it if Brett Favre had been their quarterback, to which Donovan McNabb called black-on-black crime. A year later, McNabb missed most of the season with an injury, and Owens, who was content to do sit-ups in his driveway, was suspended in mid-November as the Eagles turned a 3-1 start into a last-place 6-10 disaster. A few months later, Owens was a Cowboy and the Eagles returned to the playoffs. T.O.'s stint with Philly lasted just 22 games but produced 20 touchdowns on the field and plenty more fireworks off of it. It was certainly enough to make McNabb puke. Before the Bulls were 6-time champs, they were the Detroit Pistons' personal punching bag and just a vehicle for Michael Jordan's talents and occasionally his ego. In 1991, the season where the 61-21 Bulls finally got over the hump and defeated the Lakers in the NBA Finals, there was as much turmoil in the locker room as success on the court. Thanks to Sam Smith's best-selling book, The Jordan Rules, we got an inside look at what really went on with Phil Jackson's team. There were many tense incidents, but the best of the best include Jordan kicking a chair after getting just 12 shots in a game, calling Stacey King Doughboy, punching center Will Perdue, all-night gambling trips, and forbidding teammates from passing the ball to Bill Cartwright. I get that last one though. How's that saying go? Winning cures everything? And it did for the Chicago Bulls, who streaked through the playoffs with a 15-2 record, culminating in a weepy Jordan clutching the Larry O'Brien trophy in front of his locker. When you win, the rest is tolerated. Just make sure you have a Hall of Fame coach, a Hall of Fame guard, and a Hall of Fame forward, and bench players that shut their holes and know their roles. Well, it might technically be a bad clubhouse rather than a locker room, but baseball is certainly not immune to the pitfalls of shaky team chemistry, as proved over and over again by the New York Yankees of the late 70s. Captured by the book-turned miniseries The Bronx is Burning, the toxic relationship between manager Billy Martin and star outfielder Reggie Jackson wasn't enough to keep them from winning the 1977 World Series. Set in front of the backdrop of a New York City scrambling to catch the son of Sam killer and quench a city trapped in literal and metaphorical flames, the Yankees' newly acquired star was lifting them on the field but tearing them down off of it. During one June game in Fenway, Billy Martin pulled Reggie Jackson out of right field in the middle of the 6th inning after he appeared to take his sweet time getting to a ground ball that turned into a double. Jackson and Martin had it out in the dugout on national television, trading profanities and nearly fists before they were separated. That season, the Yankees overcame the in-clubhouse madness and defeated the Dodgers in the World Series thanks to a heroic Game 6 performance in which Jackson hit home runs on each of the first 3 pitches he saw. But between the incident in Boston, plus another game in '78 when Jackson ignored signs from Martin and bunted when he was told to swing away in a close game against the Royals, their relationship was in flames, with Martin going as far as to suspend Jackson without pay in 1978. Of course, the Yankees managed to win the World Series again that year, but Martin had already stepped away mid-season. From 1992 to 1995, the Dallas Cowboys became the first team in NFL history to win 3 Super Bowls in 4 years, and they did so with enough baggage in their locker room to fill an aircraft carrier. As detailed in the illuminating 2008 book Boys Will Be Boys by Jeff Pearlman, the Cowboys were not free from incident in the decade of their success. Take, for example, one incident involving Hall of Fame wide receiver Michael Irvin. Fellow Cowboy and 5th-year O-lineman Everett McIver was getting his hair cut when the playmaker strolled into the barbershop, expecting to skip to the front of the line based on his seniority. When his younger counterpart refused to leave the barber's chair, Irvin responded as one usually does, by grabbing a pair of scissors and burying them in McIver's neck. Fortunately, the scissors weren't sharpened and they missed the carotid artery by a couple of inches, but Irvin's frontier justice caused a massive rift not only in McIver's neck, but team chemistry. Jerry Jones allegedly dished out 6 figures to McIver in exchange for his silence and must have had a crack PR team to kill the story before it came to light. Damn, nowadays video of the incident would have been on Instagram before noon and not even shot in vertical. And that's just one day in the life. There were plenty of other incidents and blood feuds, including Skip Bayless questioning his now co-worker Troy Aikman's sexuality, guard Nate Newton's drug trafficking, Irvin's cocaine arrest, and the team's infamous White House brothel. All this from a squad that separated from their coach following back-to-back Super Bowl victories. But when you walk the walk on the field, you can talk the talk off of it. You can also apparently stab people in the neck. Quick honorable mention for the hockey buffs. Despite winning the Stanley Cup in 1994, Rangers GM Neil Smith and coach Mike Keenan hated each other so much that Keenan quit immediately after they won the title, his only season as bench boss in the Garden. The two often riffed about personnel decisions. Keenan signed a contract with another team while he was still the coach of the Rangers in '95 and was suspended by the league for it. So is a healthy locker room a necessary ingredient for a winning team? A happy team maybe, but in these cases, clearly having good relationships is not a prerequisite. As long as you do your job on the field, it makes no difference who you stab, punch, yell at, or downright bully. Maybe winning doesn't cure all, but it sure covers up all, and if it doesn't cover up all, well then money will. Lots and lots of money. Don't try this at home, kids. Sportsmanship and camaraderie work more often than not, and toxic cultures and divided locker rooms are far more frequently the common denominator of bad teams rather than good ones. Look at the Knicks. And a final piece of advice. If Michael Irvin wants to cut you in line, let him. because he's gonna cut you one way or another. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video. Please check out my other videos on weird stuff and interesting things in sports. I'm 5 Points Vids, and you made it to the end of this video.